This next talk comes from Plarium's head of business development, Leonard Frankel, growing a hardcore game on Facebook. Leonard.
Thanks, Scott. Hello, everyone. Thank you for your interest in our story. My goal with this talk is to share some of the techniques we use to grow our game on Facebook. I'll go through some monetization aspects as well, and hopefully you'll have some valuable information to take away. My name is Leonard, and I run the business development at Plarium. Last year has been very good for us, and we became the second largest hardcore game developer on the platform. I'd like to start with a little background on our company and then dive into the juicy parts on how we run things today. So Plarium was established in 2009 in Israel. Now, the most magical thing about this country is that it still exists, right? Hardcore country. We were the first company to develop a poker game in the Russian social networks. It took us 1 month to develop and was an instant hit. We then released a farm game that performed really well, and we began developing a series of relatively casual games, such as city building, fashion, and mission-based avatar games. It was only when we tried to launch for Monday on Facebook, we realized we had to up the ante. The category was overcrowded and demand for it was very low. It became clear that we have to come up with an innovative gameplay to penetrate this competitive market. And this is what I like about Plarium. We're very flexible. Even today, with more than 300 people on board, we still act like a startup in many ways. So looking back at 2010, games on Facebook that were more sophisticated, games like Vampire Wars, Werewolves, etc., they all looked like Excel spreadsheets. There were numbers here and numbers there, and if you drink this potion of greatness, you get to increase your rage by 6. There was clearly room to deliver a better experience to the player. And we set a goal to create games with high production value, with strong visuals and good audio. The first hardcore game that we created is called Total Domination. It takes place in a futuristic world where not much is left out of the civilization. Players need to rebuild their cities, restore the industry, and build an army to battle other opponents. They get to join clans, perform global missions, and fight for territory. The game performed really well. It was unlike any game we've ever seen before. We were getting millions of players to join it in Russia, and even on Facebook, it performed well from day one, and we saw a strong return on investment on our user acquisition. To maximize its potential, we went forward and created the second world in which this gameplay can take place, which is the Sea of Pirates. The third game in the series is called Stormfall. It takes place in medieval times with wizards, elves, and other magical creatures. One of the strongest creatures a player can create is a dragon, for example. By the way, who else feels that to games, a dragon is like a pretty lady with bare shoulders in an advertisement? You just add a dragon and suddenly, whoa, what a game, right? We were able to improve the game engine over time, and acceptance for Stormfall was much faster and broader than it was for Total Domination. So going on the platform and having invested in the game experience, it became clear that we need to also invest in localization of the game. And this is a tricky part because you usually cannot read what the translator writes. Let me give you an example we had with the localization of emitters. We didn't give any context as to what these really were, which is 500 tall pillars of awesomeness with the power to terraform a planet. They also serve as giant military bases. So without any context, they were localized into lampposts and remained this way for a few months until some of our players reached out asking if we were trying to play with their minds. So we have the game on the platform and it's localized. Now we need to choose which markets to go to. And this is how we did it in 2012. Our games are a bit expensive for the paying users, so we wanted to identify the purchasing power of different demographics. And to do so, we turned to the World Bank's data on GDP per capita. You can access this data and easily describe it graphically through Google's Data Explorer. Here, for example, I've charted countries by the GDP per capita. Simply put, the larger the circle, the richer the residents of this country are. So you can see that Canada is approximately the same status as the United States and that Australia is positioned slightly higher. Some countries such as Qatar and Macau have very high matrix, but they also have very small population. And indeed, the next thing you want to learn is the size of your relevant audience on Facebook. So log on to the Facebook ad system, and when you input a country, it will tell you approximately how many active users this country has on Facebook right now. The paid service of socialbakers.com can also break it down for you to age and gender demographics. Now that you have your audience defined, you need to start acquiring users. And if your game performs well, this will be your largest expense. The cost can get way beyond 10 times that of the development. So with this in mind, we set out to create a strong centralized marketing department. We also try to get the most out of the platform by integrating all of Facebook's new features. And generally, Facebook has been very supportive. Their team seems to be open and available to any developer wanting to grow on the platform. There is a test they can run for you to see how much of the platform integration your game is utilizing. We constantly try to get this test as high as we can. It's very important to us. Facebook also has a lot of information on its users, and this is priceless for marketing efforts. We try to learn about the likes and interests of our most engaged users, and it quickly became clear that our users love heavy metal music. They love science fiction literature. They like action films, and they like other hardcore games. Trying to target players that simply watch films or simply played games just didn't show any results. Now, in the last year, Facebook has introduced several new features. I'd like to go over some of them, as they are very good for targeting and engaging players. To those of you who don't know what Open Graph is, it is the stories about the player's action in the game. Stories like Leonard discovered a new technology, has attacked 3 other players, etc. Like any other game content, these are only exposed to the players already registered to the game. But when you promote them, when you sponsor them, they can reach beyond the members of your game and be exposed to your players' entire newsfeed circles. To us, the stories about a player reaching a new level perform better than other stories. Next in line are page posts. These are the posts your community managers put in the community page. And generally, they are not exposed to your entire community page. I read somewhere that Facebook estimates this to be around 16% of the people there. So there is a good reason to sponsor them. And when you do, you will reach beyond the members of your page, beyond the members of your game. But be sure to target your desired demographics and always A/B test different campaigns and different graphics. Another tip I can give you is to equip your users with fancy pixel art. This, for example, is a desktop wallpaper we gave to our players. And it's a bit hard to read here, but it was shared by more than 300 people. So a single post can have traction. Our team has created a case study about the implication of integrating Open Graph. This was in January, I think, and we played around with different stories. We tried finding those that the player would be, let's say, proud of publishing in their own newsfeed. We also played around with different graphics. The result was tremendous. We got a lot of traffic. We were able to get, in a single month, more than 15 stories per active user and generated more than 100 million impressions. Our viral traffic almost doubled, and it also helped us increase our rank in the App Center of Facebook. Let's touch some retargeting perspectives now. We use custom audiences to locate our players and retarget them, lure them back to the game. And you can do that for players who have already paid. They're much more attached to your game and they will be very happy to come and check new features in the latest update or revenge a player that has attacked them. Players that did not yet pay are obviously less attached, and to get them back playing, first of all, make sure you only address those that are highly engaged amongst them. But what would work on them is incentives, giving them free units, free hard currency, etc. Action spec is a relatively narrow topic, but it's worth mentioning nonetheless. It allows the clustering of users by an action they take on the platform. One of these actions can be playing a certain game. So if, for example, I was to target with our strategy game players that currently play Backyard Monsters, it's easily to see how they will translate into more engaged players in our game. Regardless of your game and regardless of your audience, your CPIs will be on the rise. Reasons for that are bidding wars on the platform, the increasing competition in every game genre, and your own game. Players get used to seeing your ads, and they will become less and less likely to click them. I will not touch here guerrilla marketing tactics to obtain small amounts of users or alternative advertising methods. Instead, I want to focus on our main weapon against the rising CPIs, and I call it fighting fire with fire, because what you really care about is your return on investment. If you can make more money from your players, you can spend more money on acquiring them. In the next few slides, I will show you some of the things that worked for us, and we were able to double our ARPDAUs in a year and a half. So hopefully this will be interesting. This is not a very interesting topic. I'll just skip over this slide. Talk to your players. They have some valuable information. This is better. So here are some features and promotions we used in Stormfall and their impact on our ARPU. In the bottom, you can see. Revenues behave about the same. First one is settlements. These are lucrative locations on the world map that players fight for. While you control them, you will get additional resources. And in a war game like ours, anything that triggers additional battles is good for the bottom line. Next is the promotion, 25% we gave to players in the end of last year, in the holidays. These always push revenues up, but players become quickly addicted to them and refuse to pay the full price. Players also tend to stack up more hard currency that they currently need, so you will usually see a dip in revenues until the economy rebalances back up. A core loop in our game is built around the accumulation of armies. Later stage players build such massive battalions, they actually become wary of losing them. And lose them they will, because in every battle you engage in, you will lose some or most of your army. Now you can spend the next week rebuilding this glorious army you just had, or go to the healer, pay a little bit, and have most of your army restored. This performs really well in our game, has generated a lot of revenues ever since. So as we saw that losing players becomes a setback, losing units becomes a setback for our players, we set out to solve it by introducing immortal defense units. These units do die in battle, but when the player comes back to the game, they revive. So it's kind of like buy them once, use indefinitely. Kind of like those lightweight Croc sandals that no one ever seems to throw away, right? Here we have 50% discount promotion we gave players in the last Mother's Day. And I'll be honest, I don't think we have a lot of mothers playing the game. But it did seem like a good reason for a celebration. And so twice the discount and twice the spike in revenues. I don't think it would work the same with 4 times the discount. We didn't try. Last year, I have legendary heroes. These are units that we added recently. They actually don't engage in the battle, rather encourage and benefit the units that fight under them. We have heroes for cavalry units, for aerial types, for infantry, and we've created several types of heroes to encourage players collecting them. The last topic I'd like to address now is alternative payments. Those offer walls that you see on Facebook, they're more commonly used in casual games, but they still have some potential in our genre as well. The problem is that the amounts generated from them is usually very small. You end up giving your player a small amount of hard currency as well. And it makes sense for early stage players to use them because they still have stuff in the game they can buy for less than $1. But as they progress in the game, it makes less and less sense for them to use anything other than direct purchase. Now, the simplest way to integrate it, which is indeed commonly used, is use the get free currency on the button on the top right. The deeper approach that places the campaign's banner on the game's page is much more effective. When we first integrated it, things moved on really quick. We got almost 10% of our revenues coming from this channel alone. But as time went by, we realized that there is a very high variance in these offers. And the first campaign we did with Netflix was far better than any other campaigns. Eventually, the results settled down at around 2.6% of our top line on Facebook, which is good, but not great. The added benefit is that it trains players in acquiring and spending hard currency in your game. And we saw a significant rise in paying users conversion. So that was it. I hope this was interesting for some of you, all of you, hopefully. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Thank you for sitting it through. Thank you all. Thank you.
Hi. I noticed in your ARPDAO graphs that when you did the content pushes and the offers, you had very short spikes. Like
Right.
they were sometimes quite big, but short in duration. Did you find any kind of ongoing uplift, or was it more a case of just retaining users by refreshing the content? What was the long-term benefit from those pushes?
Sure. So the question was about long-term benefit of promotions, right? Promotions don't improve the game. They just encourage players to immediately spend money getting hard currency cheaper. It just pushes the revenues for as long as you have the promotion. And if you have it too long, it will also actually affect your revenues negatively because players won't buy them at full price. So you have to play with this.
Sure, but some of the things you were putting out there weren't promotions. They were actually new
features.
content features and
Sure.
things.
So indeed, you remember, it will take me long to click back, in the slide where I spoke about our increased ARPDAUs, our average ARPDAU increased by more than 100% in a year and a half. So all of the features we implemented in the game, while they have very short-term spikes, they do build up. So especially features that train players into engaging in more battles and attacking other players, revenging, or buying more units, or give them a reason to buy new units they didn't buy before, those increase your revenues over time. All right. All right, guys. Thank you very much.